In the sleepy town of Elderglen, nestled between misty hills and shadow-draped forests, people often whispered of Serpentine Hollow, a winding cave system that twisted beneath the earth like the body of a great snake. Tales passed down through generations spoke of something ancient that slept within, something that should never be awakened. No one truly believed them, not until she came. Her name was Lysandra, and she was the kind of beauty that made time slow. With cascading black hair, emerald eyes that shimmered like forest dew, and a soft voice like rainfall on leaves, she enchanted the town the moment she arrived. She claimed to be a nature researcher, drawn by the hollow's rare cave flora. Elderglen, modest and reserved, accepted her. But no one ever suspected what she truly was. Not even Lysandra herself. It had begun with a fall. Lysandra had entered Serpentine Hollow alone one morning, sunlight filtering through the fog as she followed the narrow trail leading to the cave's entrance. She remembered everything up to the moment the ground gave way beneath her feet. The world spun. Rocks scraped her arms. Darkness swallowed her whole. Then, silence. When she awoke deep within the cavern, she was lying on a stone altar covered in ancient carvings, depictions of snakes, eyes, and spiraling symbols that pulsed with an eerie glow. Around her were the bones of animals, and perhaps, humans. Something had changed in her. She felt it immediately, a cold awareness, like another mind pressed against hers. A voice, no louder than a whisper, slithered through her thoughts, "You have awakened me." From that day, her life twisted. By daylight, Lysandra remained her gentle self. But at night, she would wake to scratches on her floor, mud on her feet, and blood beneath her nails. Her dreams were filled with hissing sounds and images of writhing, scaled bodies. Sometimes she found scales, massive, green, iridescent scales, on her sheets. Then came the first tragedy. A shepherd boy had been found torn to pieces near the town's border, his flock scattered and mangled. The town was horrified. They blamed wolves. But Lysandra, staring at the bloodied grass while the townsfolk gathered, felt the truth clawing at her stomach. She remembered nothing of the night before. Only the dream, coiled muscles, sharp fangs, and a scream. It couldn't have been her. Could it? The incidents grew. Windows shattered in the dead of night. Livestock vanished without a trace. Elderglen trembled beneath the weight of fear. Witnesses began to report sightings of a massive anaconda, far larger than any known to science, seen slithering along rooftops and between buildings under the cloak of darkness. Some said it had glowing green eyes. Some said it spoke. Lysandra kept to herself more and more, plagued by guilt and confusion. One morning, she found claw marks along her walls and cracked mirrors throughout her home. She broke down, collapsing in sobs. And then, in the glass shards at her feet, she saw her reflection change. Just for a second, but it was enough. Her eyes, once human, became serpentine. Slit pupils. Inhuman glow. The spirit was real. It lived inside her. Desperate, she sought answers. In Elderglen's old library, buried beneath cobwebs and forgotten books, she found a journal written centuries ago by a woman named Viria. Viria had once been a priestess of the old forest gods, protectors of balance, of predator and prey. She wrote of a ritual performed in Serpentine Hollow to imprison the spirit of a giant anaconda god, Ithraka, who had turned on mankind after centuries of peace. The spirit, unable to die, had been bound to the altar beneath the cave, forever waiting for a soul to release it. Lysandra's fall had not been an accident. She was chosen. She tried to fight it. For weeks, she chained herself at night, drank sedatives, locked herself in underground cellars. But it wasn't enough. The spirit grew stronger, pushing through her defenses. And each time it took control, she awoke farther and farther from home, surrounded by devastation. One night, she opened her eyes atop a ruined bridge, the stone cracked beneath her coiled body, cars overturned, terrified people fleeing. In that form, she had crushed 3 people. She saw their lifeless bodies, one woman still clutching a doll. Lysandra screamed. Her voice echoed from a snake's throat. The guilt consumed her. But part of her, a terrifying part, liked the power. The feeling of invincibility. The rush of wind as her colossal form slithered through the streets. The heat in her throat before she spat venom that melted steel. It was intoxicating. That was Ithraka, she realized. Not just possessing her, but seducing her. Corrupting her. She was losing herself. Determined to end it, she returned to Serpentine Hollow, climbing down the rocks she once fell through. The altar still stood, the carvings now pulsing rapidly, as if excited. The spirit laughed in her mind, mocking her attempts. You can't terminate a god, it whispered. But Lysandra had read Viria's last passage. There was a way. If the host sacrificed their own life on the altar, the spirit would be bound again, but the soul would remain trapped forever. A prison. A vessel. She stood there, knife in hand, tears falling freely. Then she remembered the girl with the doll. The blood. The screams. She inserted the blade into her chest. But she did not die. The spirit, furious, denied her that peace. It kept her alive, half human, half anaconda. It needed a body. If she would not surrender, it would make her suffer. The people of Elderglen never found her body, but they found her home in ruins, walls covered in scales and cryptic writing. And in the months that followed, the anaconda returned, more vicious than before. Entire buildings flattened. People crushed. Elderglen was eventually evacuated. Nature reclaimed the town, vines and trees swallowing it whole. But the cave remained. And sometimes, hikers report seeing a woman, breathtakingly beautiful, with green eyes like no other, wandering near the cave entrance. If they follow her, they never return. Years later, the legend of the Serpent Lady of Elderglen became a favorite tale for thrill-seekers and ghost hunters. Some said she was a tragic figure, a woman cursed to live with a god inside her. Others claimed she had become the god. But deep within Serpentine Hollow, beneath the ruins of a forgotten town, Lysandra still fought. Each night, she warred with the beast inside her, her humanity flickering like a candle in a hurricane. And sometimes, just sometimes, the girl returned. She would weep in the darkness, whispering apologies to the spirits of those she'd hurt. But when the moon rose, the hiss returned. And the god would rise again. Title: The Curse of Serpentine Hollow, Part 2, The Bond of Fire and Fong. For years, Lysandra remained a ghost in the shadow of the world, a soul split between the woman she had once been and the monster she was forced to become. The anaconda spirit, Ithraka, now wore her skin like a cloak. By day, she walked among the forgotten woods, quiet and restless. By night, she turned into a god of destruction. And deep down, some part of her still wept. She believed no salvation would ever come. Until he appeared. His name was Kale. A wanderer. A storyteller. A man with a past just as broken. He came to Elderglen not chasing myths, but fleeing them. Rumors of the Serpent Lady intrigued him, yes, but it was something in his dreams that drew him. Visions of green eyes and silver tears. A voice calling from underground. He followed the signs. And eventually, he found her. It was not a graceful meeting. Lysandra had just come out of a violent transformation, her scales still fading, her body shivering by the riverbank. She was half-conscious, her eyes flickering between human and snake. When Kale approached, she tried to crawl away. I mean no harm, he said, dropping his blade and kneeling. But I think you're the one I'm supposed to help. She hissed, feral, afraid. Stay away. You're in pain, he said, taking slow steps forward. I felt it too. Not like you, but I know what it means to carry something you didn't ask for. Lysandra wanted to rip him apart. But she didn't. Maybe it was his voice. Maybe the way his eyes didn't show fear, only compassion. Or maybe, it was that same force that once dragged her into the cave, fate. Over time, she let him stay. Kale lived with her in the ruins of Elderglen, where vines curled through crumbled brick and owls called through the fog. She warned him, many times, that she wasn't safe. That the thing inside her killed without mercy. But Kale stayed. He brought her food. Built traps. Made medicines from herbs. And when she cried at night from dreams of slaughter, he held her, even when her body trembled with scales. You're not a monster, he'd whisper. You're a prisoner. She wanted to believe him. Their bond deepened. Kale, who once believed himself broken, found in Lysandra a reflection, someone who had been shaped by pain, but hadn't lost all her light. He would tell her stories of the places he'd seen, mountain villages, sea cliff monasteries, and lands where fireflies danced like stars. She would laugh, sometimes. And when she laughed, the anaconda spirit stirred in confusion. Emotion. Love. It was weakening the bond. Ithraka began to fight harder. One night, during the blood moon, she lost control again. She transformed in the middle of a kiss. Kale was pinned beneath tons of coiled muscle, her fangs inches from his throat. Her mind swam in fury, but his voice, his presence, called her back. She stopped. When she returned to human form, trembling and ashamed, he took her hand and said, "We end this. Now." Kale had spent weeks researching the markings in the cave. He had read Viria's journal, uncovered through ash and mold. It described one final path, a desperate, painful ritual that could unbind the host without killing them. But it required a trade. A blood offering. One made freely by another. Not the cursed. Not the possessed. Someone who loved the host enough to suffer in their place. "Let me do it," he said. Lysandra's eyes widened. "No. I won't let you." "It's the only way," Kale said. "This thing inside you has taken too much already." Tears burned her cheeks. "You'll lose part of yourself." He touched her face gently. "So you can be whole again." They prepared for the ritual. The cave was colder now, darker than ever. Ithraka had grown aware. Angry. The symbols on the altar blazed when they entered, and the spirit roared through Lysandra's body, trying to claw its way free. Kale stood firm. Lysandra was bound to the altar, not with ropes, but with ancient runes traced in her own blood. Kale stood opposite her, shirtless, his hand resting on a ceremonial stone blade. "I offer freely," he said, repeating the ancient incantation Viria had written centuries ago. "Let my flesh redeem hers. Let my pain sever the chain." The ground shook. Lysandra screamed as Ithraka writhed inside her, roaring like 1,000 serpents. Scales erupted from her skin, her eyes going wild. The spirit tried to break the altar, to kill Kale, to stop what was coming. But he didn't flinch. With tears in his eyes, Kale whispered, "Come back to me." And he cut off his left hand. The blood hit the altar like fire. The cave exploded in green light. A vortex of energy ripped through the air, pulling the spirit from Lysandra's body. She screamed as Ithraka tore from her lungs, her spine, her very soul. It coiled in the air above them, massive, ancient, furious. A serpent god without a vessel. But it could not survive. Not without her. The runes held. The blood bond sealed. With one final shriek that echoed through time, Ithraka collapsed into dust, leaving behind nothing but silence. Lysandra awoke hours later, wrapped in Kale's arms. He was pale from blood loss, shaking, but alive. His left arm ended in a bandaged stump, yet his eyes sparkled with warmth. "It's over," he said. She sobbed, from relief, from guilt, from love. And for the first time in years, she felt free. Epilogue. Lysandra and Kale left Elderglen together, far from the ruins, far from the past. She bore scars, physical and mental, but no longer carried the god inside her. And Kale, even with one hand, found a deeper strength in what he had given and gained. Together, they settled near a quiet lake in the north, surrounded by wildflowers and birdsong. Sometimes, at night, she would still dream of fangs and scales, but Kale was always there to wake her, to remind her that she was not alone. They became a legend of their own. The girl who defeated a god. And the men who loved her enough to bleed. Thank you so much for watching interesting stories of Moody Tales. Kindly like, subscribe and share to get more interesting and educative stories that's much better than this. Best wishes from here. Have a nice day.